Okay, let's just dive right in. We all remember the immense disruption of COVID-19, right? It left every single one of us with this lingering and, frankly, pretty unsettling question.
And that's really the core question we're going to tackle here. I mean, after everything we all went through, the lockdowns, the losses, that massive global effort, are we actually any safer now from the next one?
Well, a major new report from the World Bank has looked deep into this very question. And, what it reveals is pretty sobering. It seems our collective memory might be a whole lot shorter than the risk is long.
So, to really get why we're still at risk, we have to look at this dangerous historical pattern. The report points to this cycle that's been plaguing us for decades, really, leaving us vulnerable over and over again.
And this problem actually has a name. The report calls it the panic and neglect cycle. Think about it. During a crisis, we pour in resources, right? Tons of attention. We panic. But the second that threat seems to fade, so does our focus. We neglect the problem, and all those preparedness efforts just stall out, basically waiting for the next disaster to hit. And a big part of what fuels this cycle of neglect is this really dangerous assumption that a lot of us have, that a pandemic like COVID-19 is a once-in-a-century event. It's a comforting thought, for sure. But the science, the actual data in this report, it tells a much more urgent story.
In fact, get this. New modeling estimates, there's roughly a 20% chance, yeah, that's 1 in 5, of another pandemic with the same scale of mortality as COVID-19, or maybe even worse, happening in the next decade. I'll say that again, not the next century, the next decade.
Okay, and here's a really crucial point from the report. While our recent experience has us totally laser-focused on coronaviruses, and for good reason, the modeling shows the greatest expected threat actually comes from pandemic influenza. And here's the kicker. Influenza often hits younger populations much harder. That has absolutely huge implications for how we need to prepare.
So, given this incredibly high risk, we just can't afford to get stuck waiting around for some kind of perfect global cooperation that, let's be honest, might never come. Instead, the report argues for a whole new focus, shifting responsibility and action to where it can be the most effective.
The message here is really one of empowerment. The idea is, instead of getting bogged down in all that international gridlock, the most realistic and frankly effective path forward lies with individual nations and regional groups. Countries have the power to protect their own citizens right now. They don't have to wait.
And it's not like it's some big mystery what needs to be done. The report lays out a super clear, actionable playbook. It's all structured around these 4 key phases of the pandemic cycle: prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. Preventing threats from emerging in the first place, preparing our systems, responding effectively when they do, and then recovering afterward.
All right, so let's actually look at what's in this playbook. What are the high-priority tools that the evidence shows can make a real, tangible difference? Let's start with the first step, stopping a pandemic before it even begins.
So, prevention. It all starts by recognizing that the health of humans, animals, and our environment are all deeply connected. This is what's called the One Health approach. And what it means is actively monitoring pathogens in wildlife, improving biosecurity on our farms, and strengthening surveillance right at that interface where the animal and human worlds meet. It's all about being proactive, not just reactive.
And look, when a pathogen does emerge, smart, targeted public health measures are absolutely key. A great example of this is Japan. They focused on avoiding the 3 C's, that's close spaces, crowded places, and close contact settings. And this allowed them to disrupt transmission chains so much more efficiently without having to resort to the kind of full-scale lockdowns that totally paralyzed other economies.
Of course, you can't talk about this without talking about technology. It's a total game changer, and we've really taken a quantum leap forward here. I mean, traditional vaccine development used to take a decade, sometimes more. The mRNA vaccines for COVID-19 developed in under a year. That is an incredible acceleration, and it gives us a powerful new tool in our arsenal.
But, and this is a huge but, having a vaccine just isn't enough if you can't get it to people. The report really stresses this, that breakthrough speed is only truly effective if we also invest in manufacturing and delivery systems that are spread out across the globe. We have to avoid that chaotic scramble and the massive inequity that really define the COVID-19 vaccine rollout.
So, the big question, right? How do we pay for all this? Well, this quote from Gabriel M. Long, one of the report's contributors, just perfectly reframes the entire conversation. We have to stop thinking of preparedness as an expense. It's not. It's an investment. Or maybe think of it like insurance. It's insurance against a catastrophic event that we know is coming.
In all of this, it leads us to the final and honestly the most critical message in the whole report. Because after all the data, all the analysis, all the recommendations, it really just boils down to one single thing.
We've reached a point where we know what to do. The lessons from COVID-19 are still painfully fresh in our minds. The evidence on what works, it's been gathered. The scientific and public health tools, they're available. The final barrier isn't knowledge, it's not capability, it's will.
And in her foreword to the report, the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, Helen Clark, just puts it perfectly. This really gets to the heart of the matter. At the end of the day, this is now about political choice and collective action. We have the ability. The real question is, do we have the resolve?
So, as we wrap this up, the key takeaway is this. Our future safety isn't going to be a matter of chance. It's a choice. The playbook is right there, on the table, and the decisions being made, or maybe more importantly, not made by our leaders right now, well, those are the decisions that will determine just how ready we are for the next one.